I used to think I was clever. I thought I could read between the lines, see things others missed, protect myself before anyone else had the chance to hurt me. That belief cost me everything. It cost me my marriage, the man who loved me, and the home we had built together. Now he only comes back to this house for the kids, and when he does, the silence between us is colder than anything I've ever known. And all of it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every empty morning. Started with one lie I chose to believe. Daniel and I had been married for 7 years. We had 2 kids, a mortgage, a minivan that smelled like goldfish crackers, and the kind of routine you don't appreciate until it's gone. He worked in IT, steady and reliable, while I worked part-time from home so I could be with the kids. Our life wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. We had inside jokes, little rituals, arguments over silly things like whose turn it was to unload the dishwasher. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The cracks started small. He got a promotion at work that required longer hours. He'd come home later, sometimes tired, sometimes distracted, sometimes still glued to his phone as if he hadn't quite left the office behind. I told myself it was normal, that this is what happens when careers grow. But deep down, I started to worry. When someone you love begins to look at their phone more than they look at you, it's hard not to wonder who's on the other end. That's when the messages started showing up. At first, it was screenshots from an unknown number. They were blurry at times, but the implication was clear. Flirty exchanges between Daniel and some woman from work. Phrases like, "Last night was amazing," or "Can't wait to see you again." My heart dropped the first time I saw them. I wanted to believe they were fake, that someone was playing a cruel joke, but the seed was already planted. And once doubt takes root, it grows fast. I confronted him that night. He looked at me with genuine confusion, swore up and down that he had no idea what I was talking about. He even handed me his phone, told me to check everything. But of course there was nothing there. That only made me angrier. I told myself he had deleted them, covered his tracks. I told myself he was too smooth, too careful. And when the screenshots kept coming. Different dates, different words. I started to build a story in my head. A story where I was the fool, the wife being laughed at behind closed doors while my husband had his fun elsewhere. So one night, after yet another screenshot landed in my inbox, I snapped. We were arguing in the kitchen, our voices hushed because the kids were asleep upstairs, and I screamed that I wanted him out. "If you love her so much, go to her," I yelled. His face fell. He tried again to explain, to tell me he didn't know who was sending them, that it wasn't real, that I was choosing to believe a stranger over him. But I wouldn't listen. I had already decided. He packed a bag that night. I stood there, arms crossed, daring him to fight harder for me, for us. But he didn't. He looked tired, defeated. He kissed the kids goodnight, whispered something in their ears I couldn't hear, and walked out the door. I told myself he'd come back. That this was just a dramatic pause, a fight that had gone too far. But days turned into weeks, and he didn't return. At first, he stayed at his brother's place. Then he got an apartment across town. The kids saw him on weekends, and I pretended not to care when they came back with stories of how fun Daddy's place was. But what gutted me most was the way he looked at me during drop-offs. Not angry. Not spiteful. Just empty. Like a man who had already mourned me, mourned us and moved on. It wasn't until months later that the truth came out. I had saved every screenshot, convinced I would someday use them in court if it came to divorce. One day, my friend Sasha came over, and I showed them to her again, venting about how Daniel had ruined everything. She squinted at the images, zoomed in on the text bubbles, and said quietly, "These look weird." We looked closer. The fonts were off. The timestamps didn't match. And then it hit us. They were fake. Every single one of them. Someone had fabricated messages, inserted his name, and sent them to me. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. I wanted to vomit. Because if the messages were fake, that meant I had thrown away my marriage over nothing. Daniel hadn't betrayed me. I had betrayed him. I had believed lies instead of trusting the man I had vowed to love. And worse, I had kicked him out of the home we built, shattered the life we shared, all because I couldn't silence the insecurities in my own head. I tried to tell him. I called, begged him to come over. He agreed, reluctantly. When I showed him the proof, the inconsistencies, the evidence that the screenshots were fake, He just stared at me. His face didn't soften. He didn't look relieved. He just shook his head. You never trusted me, he said quietly. Not once. You chose a stranger over me. I sobbed, begged, told him we could fix it. But he only said, I'm here for the kids. That's all. And that was the end of it. Now he comes by twice a week. He takes them to the park, to dinner, sometimes helps them with homework at the kitchen table while I stay in the other room. We barely speak, and when we do, it's only about the kids. He doesn't ask about my day. He doesn't look at me the way he used to. The warmth is gone, and I don't know if it will ever come back. The kids don't know the full story. They just know Daddy doesn't live here anymore. They ask sometimes if he'll move back in, and I smile through the lump in my throat and say, I don't know, sweetie. But I do know. He won't. Because even if he forgave me, he could never forget that I threw him out without proof, without trust, without even giving him the chance to stand by his own truth. I lie awake at night, staring at the empty side of the bed, replaying every moment in my head. The way he begged me to believe him. The way I pushed him out anyway. The way I thought I was protecting myself when really, I was destroying everything. I don't know who sent those fake messages. Maybe it was a cruel prank, maybe it was someone with a grudge, maybe it was just random. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that I let them win. I let them convince me to burn down my own marriage. And now, I'm the one standing in the ashes, while he walks away with his dignity intact. The cruelest part is that he never even raised his voice. He never called me names, never lashed out. He just walked away, carrying his broken trust with him. And I know now that's what real strength looks like. Not the shouting, not the drama, but the quiet decision to choose peace over chaos. So here I am, a wife without a husband, a woman without the man who once promised me forever. All because I believed lies over love. And the silence he leaves behind every time he walks out the door is louder than any fight we ever had.